This is Brian Davids from the Film Schlubs podcast, and I'm back with another Leftovers Thought of the Week. Well, as I theorized last week, Laurie became Season 3's direct antagonist by betraying the other apostles at their own Last Supper. Laurie continued to oppose the idea of divinity, especially in regards to Kevin Sr. and Jr., insisting that they're both mentally ill. We also learned an interesting tidbit as she was the one who committed Kevin Sr. in the first place. However, despite her steadfast belief that she can counsel others, Laurie has been as unhinged as anyone when you consider the traumatic loss she suffered on October 14th, the impact of the GR, which nearly cost her Jill's life, her failed attempts to rehabilitate other GR members such as Susan, or her attack on a book publisher. As I've discussed at great length, Laurie's red clothing set off a major red flag with me this season, especially her scarlet red turtleneck from the last couple episodes. That turtleneck plus the chalice she was holding during the Last Supper announced her as the Judas of the group before she did. And when Laurie smiled at Grace's dog, you couldn't ask for a more devilish grin from Amy Brenneman as Laurie whispered, "I borrowed your pills." By the way, at this point, I'm pretty sure that every stew that's ever been cooked on a TV show has been spiked to some degree. The OA comes to mind most recently, but in the end, Laurie's actions weren't as villainous as they seemed to be. She just wanted the chance to say goodbye to Kevin without Senior Shovel getting in the way. Now, some people might be asking, when did she decide to kill herself? Why did she care about what the others were doing or believing if she planned to kill herself? And that's really the purpose of the cold open, as it informs us that she's been suicidal for 7 years. Understandably, Laurie couldn't cope with losing her unborn child or her sudden inability to help others with their own losses, such as Sam's mom. Imagine being a highly successful therapist your entire life until something happens that is beyond comprehension. So much so that you can no longer help yourself, let alone someone else. So one could say that Laurie Garvey died on the day of the departure, even if she kept living for 7 years. You could also say that she died the moment she bought into the guilty remnants way of thinking. So in a world where the departure has happened, you really don't need a human antagonist, something Laurie fulfilled temporarily. The impact of the sudden departure is just as strong as it's ever been, and that creates all the opposition these characters could ever need because it can disconnect them from their families, from their relationships at any moment, like it has for Nora and Kevin. Few people are able to move on and let go, while most cannot, and that leads them to cope in major or minor ways. For Laurie, a cult, a book, a therapy group, the Holy Tommy charade, the John the Palm Reader charade, a new marriage, all helped her cope for a bit, but she's probably been gone the entire time, something she believes is the case for everyone. So you can take the broken woman out of the GR, but you can't take the GR out of the broken woman, something Laurie's patient Susan proved in season 2, and now Laurie herself has both committed suicide after rejoining their families or starting a new one. Moving to Nora, despite wanting to go through the Swiss machine, she dismissed Laurie's notion that she was suicidal, and in doing so, she provided Laurie with the inspiration for how she would later commit suicide. This confirms something I've been saying all season. Nora doesn't want to commit suicide, something she could have done in season 1. She just wants a chance to see her kids again, even if it means dying in the process. Essentially, it's suicide, but in this post-departure world of the leftovers, suicide is a bit more complex than our worldview on it. And that is evident with Nora and Lori, as Nora's motivation for dying is very different from Lori's intentional suicide. It's fascinating to me how the writers created parallel narratives involving the two loves of Kevin's life where both wanted to die this season. The difference is Lori is willing to die despite having two kids alive and well, while Nora is willing to die for the minute chance of seeing her two departed kids again. While their decisions are much bigger than just Kevin, they've both seen Kevin's own desire to die, be it the bag over the head routine that Nora walked in on, or Lori hearing Kevin say how he's never felt more alive than when he was dead at the hotel. So that has to have a small bit of influence since Kevin kept Nora anchored, as did Lily. In Lori's case, John's belief in Kevin, as well as Evie being alive still, contradicted their entire relationship. So I understand why Lori wouldn't stay to watch the group drown Kevin to death, especially since they believe in something that she opposes. Well, during the Volkswagen bus stakeout, Nora said to Lori that she had her IUD taken out. This was something that the Swiss doctor required if Nora was approved to use the machine. Lori assumed Nora and Kevin were trying to have kids, something Nora disputed, but this quick detail leads me to believe that Nora will absolutely force her way into this machine. Furthermore, Nora was eating an orange during the stakeout, which is TV's way of saying, you're gonna die. But back to the IUD, we saw Nora and Kevin have sex at the airport, and after doing some research, it's remotely possible to get pregnant with an IUD, and it's also possible to become pregnant after removing the IUD, even if you had sex before its removal. So in this universe, miraculous pregnancies are known to happen, and we know Kevin wanted another baby. Nora is so disillusioned after losing 3 children that she didn't want one, but she'd certainly have a reason to live again with Kevin if a pregnancy were to occur unexpectedly, if not miraculously. However, the pregnancy theory is complicated by the fact that I still think she's using that machine, which would kill her and a potential baby. I still think this story is headed back to the other place where Kevin has to find Nora and hopefully bring each other back to life, not just himself. Can Kevin's gift of coming and going extend to Nora? Does she have to perform her own mission to come back to life? Maybe they'd have a combined mission in the other place. My pregnancy theory could hold up since we saw Mary Jameson in the other place at a time when she was pregnant, but she was technically alive, just in a coma. Of course, The Leftovers has proven that anything can happen, but for a baby to survive a machine filled with radiation, that would be a stretch. Pregnancy aside, I've said before that The Leftovers has evolved into a love story since the back half of season 1, and the idea of Kevin and Nora seeing each other in the other place only for Nora to realize that the book of Kevin was true, all of it, might give her that will to live again. Reuniting after a long search throughout the other place is awfully romantic if you ask me, especially if they have to sing a karaoke duet together. Again, if Nora uses this machine, she'll die from it and then she'll go to the other place, which is a place for the dead, not the departed. And that's why I think this is a love story between Nora and Kevin, because her kids will not be at the other place, but Kevin will. So a Nora-Kevin mission or karaoke duet would reconnect them to each other, restoring their family, especially if they return to reality and Nora is pregnant. However, that season 3 premiere flash forward with Sarah presents a problem for all these ideas. Maybe the flash forward is the other place and Kevin spends years trying to find her, or, per my original thought after the second episode, Kevin interfered with her opportunity to use the machine, killing himself instead, and she's been angry ever since, which is why she ignores his communication via the birds, which we've seen travel to and from the other place. If he died via the machine, why hasn't he come back though? Or did the machine work and now Kevin is with the departed? Lastly, why was Senior holding a bag of shoes and a walking stick? Is he going to pretend to find Grace's kids' shoes during a hike so that Grace can get the closure she needs in case Kevin's trip to the other place doesn't go as planned? Will Jill and Tommy figure out that Lori committed suicide since she didn't admit on the phone to following Kevin to Australia? Lori wanted the elegant exit that Nora presented, so she must have been convinced that Matt and Nora wouldn't be around to say otherwise, given Matt's cancer and Nora's own willingness to die. But Michael could also figure it out since Lori compared herself to Judas right before he informed her that Judas committed suicide, something she didn't know. So Michael, along with Nora and Kevin, may have all inspired Lori to do something she tried to do 7 years ago thanks to the departure. However, for Lori to leave her kids behind at a time when she knows Kevin is going to drown himself, does a part of her believe that he'll actually come back? Or is she truly indifferent to it all per the GR or the Swiss doctor way of thinking, a thought and feeling that never left her the last 7 years, hence the quote, "We're all gone." I suppose Lori viewed that final phone call with her kids as a sign that they'll be alright because they have each other. Admittedly, I'm not entirely pleased that Lori was ready to not say goodbye to her kids, barring a last-minute phone call from Jill, since Tom and Jill were a huge part of her series arc. Lori's indifference to calling her kids makes narrative sense as I just explained, but this is really the one hang-up I have about this season's abbreviated slate. All of the kids were minimized within the story. And based on where we left off with Jill and Lori in 210, I would have liked to have seen a more fleshed out reconciliation between them. And to close, I love the final conversation between Kevin and Lori. It had a very Breaking Bad Felina kitchen vibe to it. I also loved how they paid off Lori's rage over Jill's lighter as she repurposed the gift to Kevin, including its message, "Don't forget me." Well, that's it for this week. Find more of me, Brian Davids, on Twitter at BDF331, as well as filmschlubspodcast.com or wherever podcasts are found. My interview with Tom Perrotta regarding Certified might be up by the time you hear this, but until next time, I'm Brian Davids, and I thank you for listening.